The stars were quiet that night. Earth's deep space station, located far beyond the moon, picked up something strange. It was not a voice. It was not music. It was just a signal, short, cold, and filled with something unnatural. The station was run by a small team of scientists. They were used to space noise, radio waves from stars, old signals from forgotten satellites, or even echoes of past battles in the galaxy. But this signal was different. Dr. Ellen Ray, the head of the station, stared at her screen. The signal lasted only 11 seconds, but it had patterns, repeating shapes in the data. It wasn't random. It felt like a message, but no one could read it. "Is this a code?" her assistant asked. "No," Ellen said. "It's not human. It's not alien either. It's something else." The signal came from a place called the Silent Zone, a dark area of space with no stars, no planets, no life. It was a place where even the most powerful empires never went. They called it cursed. Everyone believed nothing could live there. But now something had spoken from that very zone. Earth's government reacted quickly. They sent a small scout ship, the ESS Whisper, to investigate. It carried no weapons, only sensors and a crew of 3. The goal was simple: find the source of the signal and return. The Whisper entered the silent zone in complete silence. For 3 hours, Earth received updates. Then, nothing. No sound. No signal. No escape beacon. The Whisper was gone. Back on Earth, panic began to grow. But the humans were not the only ones listening. Across the galaxy, the signal had also been picked up by other empires, alien nations much older and larger than Earth. One of them was the Zorath Dominion, a powerful empire with thousands of warships. They believed they ruled space. They'd feared nothing. But even they had never entered the Silent Zone. Until now. To show their strength, Zorath sent 20 full battle fleets into the darkness. Their leaders laughed at the human fear. They said, "Let the children hide. We will deal with this ghost." The fleets entered the Silent Zone. Hours passed. Then something strange happened. Without warning, the Zorath fleets turned around. They didn't send a warning. They didn't fire a shot. They ran. Every ship, every commander, every weapon. They'd fled as if death itself had whispered in their ears. Zorath didn't explain. They said only 3 words: "We saw it." Back at Earth Station, Ellen Ray watched the data in shock. Her team had tracked the Zorath fleets on hidden sensors. They had expected a war, but there had been no battle. Only silence. Then Ellen noticed something. In the final image sent by one of their long-range probes, just before the Zorath fleets fled, there was something. It wasn't clear. It didn't have shape. But the stars around it looked wrong, bent, twisted. Like something invisible had moved between them. She enhanced the image again and again, but the more she looked, the more her screen glitched. Then her computer went black. Her AI assistant rebooted and spoke only one line. "The ship is not meant to be seen." News spread fast. The galaxy had seen many wars, many weapons, many monsters, but never something that made the Zorath run. They called it the Unseen Ship. It had no name, no form, no engine trail. It just appeared. And when it did, the strongest empire in the galaxy ran away like frightened children. No one knew what it was. No one knew where it came from. But everyone knew one thing. It was moving, and it was coming closer. On Earth, the leaders met in secret. Some wanted to hide. Some wanted to prepare weapons. Others wanted to leave the planet. But one voice stood firm: General Area North, the leader of Earth's defense. "We don't run," she said. "Not until we know what it is." Ellen Ray was invited to speak. She brought the final image of the twisted stars. "It's not a ghost," she said. "It's not a ship. It's watching." The room went silent. The first signal had only lasted 11 seconds. But now humanity was in its path, and the real story had just begun. For 10 days, no one heard anything from the ESS Whisper. Most believed the crew was dead. Others hoped the ship had just lost contact. But then, without warning, the signal came. It was short, broken, full of static, but it was real. The Whisper had sent its final log. Inside Earth's Space Command, General Arya North stood next to Dr. Ellen Ray as they played the message. The room was quiet, filled with top scientists, military leaders, and AI translators. The voice on the log was shaky. It belonged to Commander Jules Rayner, captain of the Whisper. His voice was weak, tired, and scared. We entered the silent zone at 300 hours. No contact, no response, just silence. There was a short pause. We found something. Not a ship, not a station, just darkness. It was like the stars were hiding. The log crackled. Then more words came through. Something looked at us. I can't explain it. It wasn't a ship. It had no lights, no shape. But I know it saw us. Ellen leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the screen. The message continued. Our engines failed, one by one. Then the air started feeling heavy, like it didn't want us there. We didn't see it, but we felt it. Watching, waiting. Tell Earth, tell them it's not from this galaxy. It's not part of time, it's not. The log ended with a strange, high-pitched sound. And then silence. What does that mean? One officer asked. Dr. Ellen Ray answered softly, it means, this thing isn't a ship. It's something older, something different. Can it be destroyed? Another asked. General Arya North didn't answer. She just looked at the black screen, where the last image of the Whisper still showed, blurry stars and one strange, twisted shape behind them. Far from Earth, inside Zorath's space, chaos was spreading. The commanders who had seen the unseen ship were no longer speaking. Some had gone mad. Others had sealed themselves inside locked chambers. A few had even disappeared. The Zorath Emperor gave a new order. Do not return to the Silent Zone. Let the ghost pass. Do not chase it. But it was too late. The ship wasn't staying in the Silent Zone. It was moving. And now it was headed toward the outer colonies, worlds shared by humans and other species. Earth sent out warning signals. They told every station, every ship, every explorer, do not engage, do not enter the dark. But humans are curious. One mining ship, the Orient Spear, didn't listen. They were far from Earth and had no idea how dangerous this thing really was. They sent a drone to scan the strange signal near them. The drone returned. It had no damage. But its camera footage was blank. Just empty black. Except for one frame. One frame where the stars blinked out. Like something had passed in front of them. No sound. No warning. Then moments later, the Orient Spear's captain sent one final message. It's here. Then the ship disappeared from all systems. Gone. No wreckage. No distress signal. Just gone. Back on Earth, Ellen Ray was working with the AI again. She tried to understand the original signal, the one that started all this. Suddenly, the AI spoke. Pattern found. Ellen's heart skipped. What kind of pattern? Coordinates. Not random. It's moving in a spiral, heading toward the solar system. Ellen froze. The signal wasn't just a warning. It was a path. The unseen ship wasn't drifting. It had a destination. General Arya North was called again. She stared at the path the AI displayed. It was coming slowly, but directly. Not to Mars, not to Jupiter, to Earth. We have to stop it, one leader shouted. With what? Ellen asked. Bullets? Lasers? It made 20 Zorath fleets run without firing. There must be something, another said. But Ellen knew the truth. This wasn't a ship made of steel or metal. It was something else. It didn't move through space like others. It bent space around it. It didn't send signals to talk. It sent silence to warn. And now, Earth was next. The final scene showed Ellen walking alone through the dark hall of the science tower. She stopped in front of a large screen. It showed a new signal. A short one. Just 6 seconds long. This one was different. It had no code. No words. Only one thing. A heartbeat. Slow, loud, and getting closer. The heartbeat echoed through every system on Earth. At first, it was faint. A slow, rhythmic thump like a pulse in the dark. But as days passed, the beat grew louder, closer, stronger. The scientists couldn't explain it. The military couldn't stop it. And the people, they just waited, scared and uncertain. Ellen Ray stood in front of a huge screen staring at the image that had appeared. The unseen ship's path was now clear. It wasn't just near Earth anymore. It was right there. In the skies above Earth, the first sign of its arrival was not a flash of light, not a sudden explosion of power. It was a darkness. The space around the planet started to warp, as if reality itself was being bent. The stars blinked. The moon flickered. And in that moment of perfect silence it came. The first thing anyone noticed was the sudden stillness. For one entire minute, nothing moved. No ships, no satellites, no sounds, nothing. Earth's communications were completely cut off. At the command center, General Area North clenched her fists. The heartbeat grew louder, echoing in her mind. "It's here," Ellen whispered, her voice trembling. The lights in the command center flickered and then dimmed, as if the very air had been drained of energy. And then something appeared. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a station. It wasn't even a floating mass of matter. It was a shadow, a dark shape that stretched across the stars. For a second, it seemed like nothing, just empty space. Then slowly, like a ghost rising from the depths of the sea, it took form. The shape was impossible to describe. It didn't have edges. It didn't have lights. It didn't have anything that made sense to human eyes. It was just there. A dark, living thing, moving through space. The heartbeat was now deafening, but no one could figure out where it came from. Back in space, the nearest fleets began to report back, but their transmissions were broken. Their ships couldn't even register what they were seeing. One small scout ship, the Falcon's Eye, tried to approach it, its sensors ready to capture the phenomenon. They didn't get close. Their last transmission was just a scream. "We can't stop it. It's coming for us." Then silence. On Earth, fear turned to panic. People in the streets looked up, hoping to see something. A flash. A fire. Anything. But all they saw was nothing. Not even the stars. The unseen ship didn't reveal itself in the way anyone expected. There was no sudden burst of energy. There was no warning. It just arrived. And it didn't care. Back in the command center, Ellen stared at the massive screen in front of her. The image was still blurry, still dark. "This is impossible," she said. "It doesn't even look like anything. It's like we're looking at nothing." Arya didn't answer. She only looked at the same screen, watching the dark shape grow larger. It wasn't moving fast. It wasn't even moving in the way a normal ship would. It was just there. And it was growing. The military made an emergency decision to launch a fleet of defense ships, the Earth's vanguard, but General North knew it was pointless. "It won't work," Ellen said quietly, glancing at the general. "No weapon will stop it. The Zora fleets tried to fight. They ran." "I don't care," Arya snapped, her voice steady. "We need to know what it is. We need to know what it wants." And so the ships launched, one by one. They flew toward the dark shape, their weapons armed and their pilots ready. The closer they got, the more the darkness seemed to move. Then something changed. The dark shape shifted. It wasn't a smooth movement. It was like the very fabric of space was being twisted, pulled and reshaped. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a weapon. It was alive. Then, for the first time since it appeared, a sound came through. It wasn't a voice. It wasn't a signal. It was a whisper. A voice soft and cold like ice on the edge of the universe. It spoke in a language no one could understand, but the message was clear. The ships froze in midair. Their engines stopped. They couldn't move. And then, without warning, the ships disappeared. Gone, as if they had never existed. The unseen ship didn't stop. It didn't slow. It just kept coming, moving slowly through space, watching. And now, the question wasn't where it was from. It was why it had come. General Area North stood in front of the screen, her face pale. She had no answers. Ellen looked over at her, her eyes wide with fear. "It's too late," she whispered. "It's here, General. It's already here." And in that moment, no one could deny it. Earth was not the hunter. It was the prey. The world watched as the unseen ship grew larger in the sky. For hours it drifted through space, unhurried, like a shadow stretching across the stars. People on Earth could see it, but they couldn't understand it. There was no sound, no light, no explanation. The heartbeat had stopped, replaced by an eerie stillness. It was as if time itself had frozen, waiting. And yet the most terrifying part wasn't what they could see. It was what they couldn't. General Area North stood before the large windows of the command center. Outside, the unseen ship hung in the air like an enormous black cloud. The entire fleet of defense ships had been swallowed without a trace. No wreckage, no debris, just empty space. The only sign of their disappearance was the fading light of their last communications, signals that had suddenly been cut off as the ships entered the area near the ship. "We've lost them all," said a voice behind her. It was Captain Jericho Hayes, leader of Earth's Vanguard fleet. Aurea turned to face him, her eyes hard with anger and fear. How could this happen? We had our best pilots out there. "It's not their fault," Hayes replied grimly. "Whatever that thing is, it's not just a ship. It's something else." Ellen Ray, standing beside the two, nodded. "It doesn't follow any known laws of physics. It bends space, twists reality. I don't even think we can measure its power." "We have to stop it," Aurea said firmly. "We have no choice. We're facing something that the Zorath couldn't defeat, something that the humans have never seen before. And it's coming for us." Meanwhile, in orbit, the unseen ship was closer than ever to Earth. It hadn't made a move. It hadn't fired a weapon. It hadn't even sent a clear signal. It just hung there watching. And that was what terrified the world the most. It wasn't attacking. It was waiting. As Earth's defense fleets regrouped, Ellen worked tirelessly at the console, trying to figure out what made the unseen ship so dangerous. Was it an invasion? Was it simply passing by? Why didn't it just destroy us already? Aurea asked, her voice tight with frustration. Ellen shook her head. "It's not about destruction. It's about something else. I think it's trying to understand us. Or maybe it's testing us." Testing. Aurea didn't understand. Testing what? Before Ellen could answer, an alarm blared. The ground shook. The air seemed to grow heavy, thick with tension. "What's happening?" Aurea demanded, running to the screen. A new signal had appeared. It was like the first one. A short burst, static-filled, and incomprehensible. But this one was different. It had a strange rhythm, a pulse that matched the heartbeat they had heard before. It wasn't a message. It was a warning. And the moment it finished, the unseen ship moved. It was like nothing anyone had ever seen. The darkness surrounding the ship twisted and folded, forming shapes that defied logic. Space itself seemed to bend and stretch as the ship slowly descended, inching closer to Earth. "No, no," Ellen gasped. The ship wasn't just floating. It was pulling Earth toward it as if drawing the very fabric of space itself. It didn't seem to use any kind of propulsion. It simply moved as though the universe bent around it. Ellen worked frantically, trying to figure out how to stop it. "General," she shouted, "it's creating a gravitational field. If we don't do something, it will pull Earth out of orbit." Aria's face went pale. "We can't allow that to happen." On the surface of Earth, panic was spreading. People filled the streets, looking up, watching in terror as the ship grew larger. News stations broadcast the images of the unseen ship, but there was no sound, no explanation. Just the strange shadow in the sky. In the chaos, some were whispering rumors that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. It had happened before, but no one had ever believed the stories. Now it was happening again. In space, the Earth's fleets had started to move, preparing to intercept the unseen ship. But their chances were slim, very slim. The darkness around the ship seemed to grow thicker, more intense. Every ship that came too close started to lose power, their engines flickering and failing. One by one, the ships stopped moving, caught in the grip of the unseen ship. Ellen stared at the screen. "It's like a predator in space," she said quietly. "And we are its prey." Aria felt a cold chill run down her spine. But why is it waiting? The answer came in an unexpected way. A transmission crackled through the comms. It was faint at first, but soon the voice became clearer. "Earth," it said, the voice cold and distant. "You are not the target. You are the test." Ellen's heart skipped a beat. "Test," she echoed. Then the voice continued, its words like ice on the skin. "Survive, and you will learn what lies beyond." The transmission cut out. For the first time, there was a shift in the air. The unseen ship wasn't just waiting. It was offering a challenge. And Earth had no choice but to face it. The world was on the brink. For days, the unseen ship had loomed over Earth. Its dark shape hovered in the sky, almost invisible, except for the strange ripple it left behind in the fabric of space. It hadn't fired a single shot. It hadn't shown any weapon. But the fear was real. It had done something to Earth. And now the world was waiting to see what came next. General Aria North stood before the massive control screen, her eyes glued to the swirling pattern of light and dark. The ship was still there, still waiting, as if testing humanity. "We've been trying to understand it for days, General," Ellen Ray said, her voice shaking slightly. "But it's not just a ship. It's an intelligence, a force beyond anything we can imagine." "We know that," Aria said quietly, but the weight of her words hung in the air. "But what does it want? Why is it here?" Ellen turned to face her, her face pale. "That's the question, isn't it? We can't seem to communicate. We can't even get close enough to study it." But Earth wasn't the only one watching. Out in deep space, the remaining alien fleets who had once feared the unseen ship gathered around, watching from a distance. They had once fought it. They had once run. Now they were in the same position as Earth. On Earth, it was no different. The population was divided, unsure of what to do. Some believed that the ship would eventually leave. Others believed it was preparing for an attack, but no one knew for sure. Then the voice came again. "Earth," the cold, distant voice echoed across the comm systems. "You will face your final choice soon. Choose wisely." It was the same voice that had spoken before, the same strange, emotionless voice that had left everyone in fear. On the planet's surface, panic turned to something else. It was no longer just fear. Now there was something deeper. There was a strange pull to the ship, a feeling that something was about to happen. It was a deep, unsettling calm that settled over everyone. For the first time, they realized what they were facing wasn't an attack. It was a test. In the command center, Aria stood still, her mind racing. A choice. What does that mean? Ellen looked up from her console. The unseen ship isn't here to conquer us. It's not even here to destroy us. It's here because we've been chosen. This is about what comes next. Aria clenched her fists. What comes next? Ellen shook her head. "I don't know. But we have to find out. We can't just sit here and wait." Then the ship did something different. A sudden pulse of light filled the sky. It wasn't bright. It wasn't blinding. It was like a wave of energy that spread outward from the ship, sending ripples across the atmosphere. It was a signal, and it was aimed directly at Earth. All the communication systems went silent. No broadcasts, no signals, no transmissions. The sky was completely still. And then, without warning, the pulse shifted. It didn't disappear. It didn't fade. It just changed. The air around the world seemed to crackle, and for a brief second, every living creature on Earth felt a strange pressure, like a weight had been lifted off their shoulders. The voice returned. Choose. If you wish to survive, you will need to make a choice. Your choice will determine whether you are worthy. The words were clear. There was no room for error. The message was simple. And in that moment, the choice became terrifyingly real. The Earth could submit, giving in to whatever the unseen ship required, or it could resist, risking everything to fight for its future. The decision was in the hands of humanity. They had to choose whether they would fight back or whether they would accept the test and face the consequences. The world's leaders gathered in secret meetings. The military prepared its remaining forces. Scientists worked around the clock to decode the message, to find any clue, any key to unlocking the unseen ship's true purpose. But the longer they waited, the more frantic things became. And then came the most shocking part. Another alien fleet, one that had once been hostile to Earth, sent a message. We chose to resist, their voice said through the transmission. We failed. They shared an image of their homeworld, now in ruins. We do not want Earth to make the same mistake. The alien fleet leader's final words were chilling. The unseen ship has chosen us all, but only those who accept its challenge will survive. Aria's heart raced as she heard the transmission. Why didn't they tell us this sooner? Ellen asked, her voice a whisper. Why didn't we know? It wasn't time, Aria said softly. And now it's too late to turn back. The Earth had made its choice. It would face the unseen ship, no matter what the cost. It was not just a test, it was the beginning. And as the darkness around the ship shifted once more, the world held its breath, waiting for the next move. The world had made its choice. Now the world would pay the price. The unseen ship had lingered long enough. For days it had hovered in Earth's sky, casting its dark shadow over the planet. The pulse of its power still lingered in the atmosphere. A strange silence had taken over the world, but now it was different. The time for waiting was over. The time for the final confrontation had come. General Aria North stood in the command center once again, her face grim and set. The choice had been made. They had decided to face the unseen ship, to fight back no matter the cost. The final transmissions had been received from the alien fleet that had already fallen to the ship. Their warnings were clear, but now there was no turning back. We have no idea what we're facing, Aria said, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. But we have to fight. It's the only way. We're ready, Captain Hayes replied, his tone firm. All ships are in position, and we've prepared every weapon we have. But is it enough? Ellen Ray asked, looking up from her console. The unseen ship is not just a weapon. It's a force. We don't know its full power, but every time it pulses, it shifts space itself. We can't predict how it will react. Aria nodded. Then we'll make our move and hope for the best. On the surface of Earth, cities were on edge. The sky was still dark, the unseen ship hanging above like an ominous cloud. People looked up, wondering if this would be the end. Soldiers, civilians, children, all watched, knowing that this was it. The world was about to be tested. In space, the remaining fleets of Earth's defense ships aligned, preparing for their final assault. But there was no sense of victory. There was only the deep, gnawing fear that this battle could end in defeat. As Aria and her team watched from the command center, a strange shift occurred. The unseen ship did not move forward or backward. It didn't even seem to notice the ships surrounding it. Instead, it extended. The darkness around it spread out, reaching toward Earth like a vast web. "They're closing in," Ellen warned. "Hold steady," Arya barked. "We need to time this strike perfectly. If we miss, we won't get another chance." For a moment, nothing happened. The tension in the air grew thicker, and even the soldiers aboard the ships could feel it. It was as if the unseen ship was watching, waiting for them to make the first move. And then it happened. The first strike came not from the Earth's ships, but from the unseen ship itself. A massive pulse of energy erupted from the heart of the ship, shooting out in every direction. It was like nothing the humans had ever seen. The pulse didn't just attack. It ripped through space, bending light and tearing apart the very fabric of reality. The Earth's ship staggered, struggling to stay in position. "We've lost contact with the Vanguard fleet," Ellen cried. "Their engines have failed. They're being pulled in." It was a disaster. The pulse wasn't just a weapon. It was a force that disrupted everything in its path. Ships were being dragged in, lost without a trace. The Earth's forces had barely been able to react before the next pulse came. "Hold steady," Arya shouted over the chaos. "We still have a chance. Focus on the weak points in their shields. We can break through." The remaining ships fired, launching missiles and energy blasts at the unseen ship. But they were met with the same resistance. The unseen ship seemed to dissolve their weapons before they even reached it. "What is this thing?" Hay shouted. "Nothing we have is working." For a moment, it seemed hopeless. The human forces were fighting a losing battle, their weapons useless against the overwhelming power of the unseen ship. But Arya wasn't ready to give up. She stared at the screen, her mind racing. There had to be something, some way to break through. And then she realized. The pulse. The ship didn't just fire randomly. It was like a rhythm, a pattern. "If we can time it," she said, a spark of hope in her voice, "we can match the pulses. We can move when it strikes." Ellen quickly analyzed the data. "It's possible," she said, "but it's a lone shot. We have to try," Arya ordered. The last remaining ships adjusted their course, sensing their movements with the pulse of the unseen ship. They had to be precise. They couldn't afford to make a single mistake. As the pulse of energy fired again, the fleet shifted. It was their chance. One by one, the ships moved into position, launching their final, most powerful weapons, not at the ship itself, but at the source of the pulse, deep within the heart of the unseen ship. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the world shook. The energy pulse collapsed. The unseen ship trembled, its grip on space wavering. The darkness around it shifted, revealing cracks in its form. It wasn't just a ship anymore. It was breaking apart. And then a loud, piercing sound echoed through the galaxy, a sound that shook the very foundation of reality. The unseen ship had been struck. But the battle was far from over. As the ship's form began to crack, it let out a final pulse of energy, stronger than anything before. It reached across the galaxy, pulling everything within range into its orbit. Earth's fate hung in the balance. "Brace for impact," Arya shouted. But just as the pulse reached Earth, something unexpected happened. The unseen ship stopped. It simply froze. The pulse of energy stopped. The ship's form stopped moving. Everything stopped. And in that silence, one final transmission came through. "Humanity has chosen," the voice said, calm and cold. "The test is over." The pulse had stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. A deep, eerie silence filled the space around Earth, as if time itself had paused. No sound, no movement, just stillness. And then slowly the sky began to change. The darkness around the unseen ship, which had once been thick and impenetrable, began to fracture. It wasn't gone, but it was no longer as powerful. General Arya North stood at the command center, staring at the large screen. Her mind raced, her heart pounded in her chest, but there was a strange calm in the air. The pulse had stopped. The unseen ship, though still hovering, was no longer actively attacking. It was waiting. "It's over," Arya whispered, not sure whether she believed it. "We did it," Captain Hayes said, though his voice was unsure. "But at what cost? We lost so many ships." Ellen Ray looked down at the data, her face pale. The pulse weakened, but it's still there. It's as if the unseen ship is deciding if we are worthy. Arya didn't respond right away. She was still trying to understand what had just happened. How had they survived? Was the test really over, or was something else coming? On the surface of Earth, people waited for any sign of what would happen next. The skies had cleared, and for the first time in days, the sun broke through the clouds. It felt like a new beginning, but no one could be sure. In space, the remaining Earth ships drifted, their crews exhausted but alive. They had survived the worst, but the unseen ship had not completely given up. It was still there watching, waiting. And then the voice came again. The same emotionless, cold voice that had spoken before. "Humanity has chosen." It echoed through every communication channel, loud and clear. "Your decision has been noted. You have passed the test." The voice paused as if considering something. "But remember Earth. This is only the beginning. You are no longer alone in the galaxy, and the challenges you will face will only grow." A chill ran through Arya as she heard the words. The battle with the unseen ship was over, but the war, the real war, had just begun. The unseen ship, once an unstoppable force, began to fade. It didn't leave immediately, but its form began to dissolve, slowly disappearing into the vastness of space. "It's leaving," Ellen said, her voice full of disbelief. The unseen ship didn't retreat. It simply vanished, its presence in Earth's sky no longer a threat. But Arya knew this wasn't the end. The voice spoke again, this time softer. "You have passed the test, but your true strength will be revealed in the challenges ahead. Earth will need more than just courage. It will need unity, wisdom, and a new understanding of what it means to be part of a galactic community." The transmission ended, and with that the Earth finally exhaled. The war was over. The unseen ship was gone. The world could finally begin to rebuild, but there was a sense of uncertainty in the air. Humanity had faced the unknown and survived. But the final message was clear. Earth had earned a place in the greater universe, but the true test had just begun. General Arya North stood at the control panel, her eyes fixed on the sky. "Do you think they'll come back?" Ellen asked, her voice quiet. Arya didn't answer immediately. She had learned something in these past days, something about the unknown, about the true power of humanity. She had seen the fear, the strength, and the resilience of her people. And despite the unknowns ahead, Arya knew one thing for certain. Humanity wasn't just ready for the future. They had already survived it. "Maybe," Arya said softly, her voice full of resolve. "But if they do, we'll be ready." As the remnants of the unseen ship faded into the stars, humanity stared up at the sky, no longer afraid, but prepared. The galaxy was vast, and now Earth had a place in it. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in history, Earth was no longer just a lonely world on the edge of space. It was a part of something much, much bigger.